The afternoon sun beat down on the cracked pavement as 17-year-old Lily sat with her back against the brick wall. Her cardboard sign rested beside her, the words, "Anything helps." God bless, barely visible after weeks of rain and wear. She pulled her knees closer to her chest, trying to make herself smaller, less noticeable. That was the trick to surviving on the streets. Be invisible. Don't cause trouble. Don't draw attention. 6 months. That's how long she'd been out here. Half a year of sleeping in shelters when she could get a bed, under bridges when she couldn't. Half a year of skipped meals and cold nights. Half a year of people looking right through her like she was made of glass. She watched the people walk by. Business people in crisp suits talking on their phones about meetings and deadlines. Young couples holding hands, laughing about weekend plans. Families with children who pointed at her until their parents pulled them away, whispering that they shouldn't stare. Everyone had somewhere to go, someone waiting for them. Everyone except her. Her stomach growled. She'd had half a sandwich this morning from the church downtown, but that felt like ages ago. The spare change in her pocket added up to maybe $2. Not enough for much. Maybe a small coffee if she went to the cheapest place, but she'd save it. Tomorrow might be worse. A commotion down the street caught her attention. People were gathering in the plaza, clustering around something. Lily could hear music floating through the air, classical piano music that made something inside her chest tighten painfully. She tried to ignore it, tried to focus on anything else, but the sound pulled at her like a rope tied around her heart. She stood up slowly, her legs stiff from sitting too long. Against her better judgment, she found herself walking toward the crowd. Just to look, she told herself. Just for a minute. The city had recently placed a piano in the public plaza. Some kind of art project about bringing music to the community. Lily had seen it a few days ago and had walked 3 blocks out of her way to avoid passing it again. But now, drawn by the sound, she pushed through the edge of the crowd until she could see. A middle-aged woman in an elegant dress sat at the piano, her fingers moving gracefully across the keys. She played beautifully, and the crowd applauded when she finished. Then a young man in a college sweatshirt took a turn, playing something modern and upbeat. More applause. More smiles. Lily's own fingers twitched at her sides. She knew that feeling. The weight of the keys under her fingertips, the way the pedals felt beneath her feet. She knew it so well that even now, after all these years of silence, her body remembered. Before she realized what she was doing, she had moved closer. The current player had just finished, standing up to take a bow. The piano bench sat empty. The instrument seemed to glow in the afternoon light, calling to her. Her feet carried her forward through the crowd, her hand reaching out toward the smooth black surface of the piano. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," a sharp voice cut through her trance. A man in an expensive gray suit stepped directly in front of her, blocking her path. "Where do you think you're going?" Lily froze, her hand still extended in the air. Heat rushed to her face as she realized what she'd done. The entire crowd was now staring at her. At her stained jacket and torn jeans. At her tangled hair that she hadn't been able to wash in 3 days. At her dirty fingernails and the old backpack hanging from her shoulders. "I just wanted to—" She started, but her voice came out as barely a whisper. "You just wanted to what?" A woman's voice joined in, sharp with disgust. "Touch the piano with those filthy hands." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Not friendly laughter. The cruel kind that makes your skin burn. "Someone should call security," another voice said. "Does she even know what a piano is?" Someone else asked, and more people laughed. The man in the suit crossed his arms. "This is a community piano, sweetheart. For the community. Not for—" He gestured vaguely at her appearance, his lip curling slightly. "People like you." Lily felt tears prick at her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She'd cried enough tears over the past 6 months. She'd learned that crying on the streets just made people uncomfortable, made them walk faster, look away harder. But something was different today. Maybe it was hearing the music again after so long. Maybe it was the way these people looked at her like she was dirt on their shoes. Maybe it was just that she was tired. So tired of being invisible, of being nothing, of being judged before she even opened her mouth. "Please," she said louder this time. "Just 1 minute. That's all I need." The crowd's murmurs grew louder. A woman clutched her designer purse tighter, as if Lily might try to snatch it. 2 teenagers were recording on their phones, probably planning to post it online later with some caption about a crazy homeless girl. "You've got to be kidding me," a man with salt and pepper hair said, shaking his head. You want to play the piano? You don't make us laugh, someone shouted from the back, and the crowd erupted in more laughter. She probably doesn't even know which end of the piano to sit at, a young woman in workout clothes said to her friend, loud enough for everyone to hear. The man in the gray suit smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. Look, kid, why don't you go back to wherever you came from? There are people here who actually know how to play. People who've had lessons, who've trained. This isn't for people who live on the street. Each word felt like a slap. Lily stood there, surrounded by well-dressed people who had decided her worth before she'd even touched a single key. They saw her clothes, her circumstances, and thought they knew everything about her. Thought they knew what she could and couldn't do. Thought they knew who she was, but they didn't know. They didn't know about the years of lessons, the competitions, the trophies gathering dust in some storage unit she'd never see again. They didn't know about her mother's voice encouraging her to practice, about the dreams they'd shared together. They didn't know that music had once been her entire world, before that world had collapsed and left her with nothing. An elderly woman near the front sighed dramatically. Oh, for heaven's sake, let her try. She waved her hand dismissively. When she makes a fool of herself, maybe she'll learn her place and move along. We could use the entertainment. The crowd agreed with scattered laughs and nods. The man in the gray suit stepped aside with an exaggerated bow, gesturing toward the piano. Be my guest, he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Show us what you've got, piano girl. Lily's heart pounded as she walked to the bench. Every eye was on her, waiting for her to fail, expecting her to embarrass herself. Her hands shook as she sat down. The piano bench felt strange and familiar at the same time, like coming home after being gone so long you almost forgot what home felt like. She looked at the keys, black and white stretching out before her. Her fingers hovered over them, trembling. Behind her, someone coughed impatiently. Someone else laughed. The man in the gray suit checked his watch, already bored. Lily closed her eyes and took a deep breath. In her mind, she heard her mother's voice from so long ago. Don't play for them, sweetheart. Play for yourself. Play for the music. That's all that matters. And then slowly, carefully, she let her fingers touch the keys. The moment Lily's fingers touched the keys, something broke open inside her. 8 years. It had been 8 years since she'd last played. 8 years since she'd allowed herself to even think about music. But sitting there on that bench, with the crowd waiting to laugh at her, memories came flooding back so fast and strong that she could barely breathe. She was 9 years old again, sitting in their tiny apartment on the 3rd floor of a building that always smelled like someone's cooking. Her mother was beside her on the bench, their knees touching, guiding her small hands to the right position. Feel the music, Lily, don't just play the notes. Feel them in your heart first, then let them out through your fingers. Her mother. God, she missed her mother. Elena had been a piano teacher, but not the fancy kind who taught rich kids in mansions. She taught in their living room, squeezing lessons between her job at the grocery store and her weekend shifts at the diner. Their piano wasn't grand or expensive. It was old and slightly out of tune, but to Lily it had been the most beautiful thing in the world. You have a gift, my sweet girl, her mother used to say, kissing the top of her head. A real gift. Not everyone can make a piano sing the way you do. Lily had started playing when she was 4 years old. By 5, she could play simple pieces by ear. By 7, she was playing Beethoven. Her mother had worked herself to exhaustion to pay for better teachers, for sheet music, for the competition fees that seemed to pile up every month. But she never complained. She'd just smile and say, one day everyone will hear you play. One day you'll perform in concert halls and I'll be in the front row crying like a proud mama. They'd been happy despite having almost nothing. Their apartment was small. Their furniture was second-hand, and sometimes they ate rice and beans for dinner 3 nights in a row. But they had each other and they had music. That was enough. That was everything. When Lily was 9, she won the state junior piano competition. She could still remember her mother's face in the audience, tears streaming down her cheeks, clapping so hard her hands must have hurt. Afterward, in the parking lot, her mother had hugged her so tight Lily thought her ribs might crack. I knew it. I always knew. You're going to do amazing things, baby. Amazing things. 3 months later, her mother collapsed at work. The doctor's words still echoed in Lily's head sometimes, usually late at night when she couldn't sleep. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Nothing they could do. Maybe a few months if they were lucky. Why didn't you tell me you were sick? Lily had asked. sitting beside the hospital bed holding her mother's thin hand. Her mother had smiled, that same gentle smile, even though Lily could see the pain in her eyes. Because you had a competition coming up. Because you needed to focus on your music. Because I wanted to see you win. She'd squeezed Lily's hand weakly. Promise me something, sweetheart. Promise me you'll keep playing. No matter what happens, keep playing. Music is your gift to the world. But Lily hadn't kept that promise. How could she? How could she sit at a piano and make beautiful sounds when her mother was gone? How could she play the songs they'd practiced together? The pieces her mother had loved without falling apart. The cancer took her mother in 4 months. One day Elena was there, weak but still smiling, still telling Lily how proud she was. The next day she was gone, just gone, and 9-year-old Lily was alone. There were no relatives. Her father had left before she was born. Her mother had been an only child and her grandparents had passed away years ago. It was supposed to be just the two of them against the world. Her mother had always said they didn't need anyone else as long as they had each other. But now there was only Lily. The foster system swallowed her up fast. The first home wasn't terrible. The Hendersons were older, quiet people who meant well but didn't really know what to do with a grieving child. They had a piano in their living room, covered with a white cloth and family photos. Mrs. Henderson had offered to let Lily play it once. Lily had looked at that piano and felt like she might throw up. She'd run to her room and lock the door. After that, she refused to talk about music, refused to go near pianos. The Hendersons tried for a while, but they were fostering to help pay their bills, not to deal with a traumatized kid who woke up crying every night. After 6 months, Lily was moved to another home, then another. And another. Some families were kind but overwhelmed. Some were just in it for the monthly check. Some tried to help, but Lily had built walls so high around her heart that no one could climb over them. She stopped crying, stopped talking much at all, stopped letting herself feel anything, because feeling hurt too much. By the time she was 13, she'd been through 7 different homes. She'd learned to pack her bag fast, to not get attached to anything or anyone, to expect disappointment. She'd learned that people gave up on you eventually. Everyone did. The last foster family, the Carters, had seemed okay at first. They had 2 kids of their own and fostered 3 others. It was crowded and chaotic, but at least it was stable. Lily had started to think maybe, just maybe, she could stay there until she turned 18. Then Mr. Carter lost his job. Then Mrs. Carter got sick. Then the state came and moved all the foster kids out, splitting them up to different homes. But by then, Lily was almost 17. Nobody wanted a teenager. Teenagers were too much trouble, too much attitude, too close to aging out anyway. She bounced between group homes and short-term placements. She went to 4 different high schools in 2 years. She fell behind in her classes. She stopped trying. What was the point? In a few months, she'd be 18, and then she'd be out on the streets anyway. The system didn't care what happened to you after that. So when her 18th birthday came and went last spring, Lily wasn't surprised to find herself homeless. She'd known it was coming. She'd prepared as much as anyone could prepare for something like that. She had her backpack, some clothes, her mother's old scarf that still smelled faintly of her perfume, and nothing else. No family, no friends, no home, no future, and definitely no music. She'd locked that part of herself away so completely that she'd almost convinced herself it had never existed, that those years with her mother, those hours at the piano, those competitions and dreams had all been someone else's life. Not hers, not anymore. But now, sitting at this piano in this plaza with these people waiting to mock her, all those memories came crashing back. Her mother's voice, her mother's hands guiding hers, her mother's dreams for her future. Her mother's last request, promise me you'll keep playing. Lily had broken that promise for 8 years. 8 years of silence. 8 years of pretending she was someone else. Someone without a gift. Someone ordinary and forgettable. But maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe just for this moment she could stop pretending. Maybe she could let herself remember who she used to be, who her mother had believed she could become. The crowd behind her was getting impatient. Someone coughed loudly. Someone else laughed. The man in the gray suit said something sarcastic that made others chuckle. Lily didn't hear them anymore. She was 9 years old again, sitting beside her mother, feeling the music in her heart before letting it out through her fingers. She took one more deep breath, closed her eyes, and began to play. The first note came out soft and uncertain, like a question being asked after years of silence. Lily's finger pressed down on the key and the sound filled the air around her. It was just one note, but it felt like opening a door she'd kept locked for so long. Then came the second note. The third. Her right hand found the melody while her left hand searched for the bass notes, hesitant at first. Like greeting an old friend you weren't sure would remember you, she chose Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, her mother's favorite. The piece they'd played together on Lily's last birthday before the diagnosis, before everything fell apart. It had been the soundtrack to their happiest moments, flowing through their tiny apartment on Sunday mornings when they'd make pancakes and her mother would hum along. The muscle memory was still there, buried under 8 years of pain and survival, but there. Her fingers remembered even when her mind had tried to forget. They found their way across the keys, slowly at first, then with growing confidence. Behind her, the laughter died away. The mocking comments stopped mid-sentence. The plaza, which had been filled with noise and judgment just moments ago, fell into complete silence. Lily kept her eyes closed. She couldn't look at them, couldn't see their faces. If she looked, she might stop. If she stopped, she might never start again. So she played, letting the music pour out of her like water that had been dammed up too long, finally breaking free. Her fingers moved faster now, more sure. The hesitation melted away with each passing measure. This was who she was. This was who she'd always been, underneath the dirty clothes and the hunger and the loneliness. This was the gift her mother had seen in her all those years ago. The melody swelled and dipped, carrying with it every emotion Lily had buried. The grief of losing her mother, the fear of being alone, the shame of having nothing, the anger at a world that had looked away from her, but also something else, something she'd almost forgotten existed. Hope, fragile and small but there, like a tiny flame that refused to go out no matter how hard the wind blew. Tears ran down her cheeks as she played, but she didn't stop. Her fingers danced across the keys the way they used to, the way her mother had taught her. She could almost feel her mother sitting beside her again, could almost hear her voice saying, "Beautiful, sweetheart. So beautiful." The Chopin piece ended, but Lily didn't stop playing. She transitioned into something else, something softer. Debussy, Clair de Lune, Moonlight, another piece her mother had loved, another piece that carried memories in every note. Summer evenings with the windows open, the sound of the city outside, her mother grading papers while Lily practiced, occasionally looking up to smile at her. The plaza had transformed. People on the street had stopped walking. Shopkeepers had come out of their stores. Diners had left their tables at the outdoor cafe to see where the music was coming from. The original crowd had grown to twice its size, then 3 times, everyone drawn by the sound of the piano and the girl playing it. Phones appeared, held up to record. But Lily didn't see them. She was somewhere else entirely, lost in the music, lost in the past, lost in the part of herself she'd tried so hard to forget. The man in the gray suit stood frozen, his mouth slightly open. The woman who'd clutched her purse had tears streaming down her face. The teenagers who'd been ready to mock her had lowered their phones just listening. The elderly woman who'd said Lily should learn her place had her hand over her heart, her eyes closed. Lily finished the Debussy and paused for just a moment. Her hands hovered over the keys. She could stop now. She'd proven her point. She'd shown them they were wrong about her. But something inside her wasn't ready to stop. She'd been silent for so long. She had more to say. So she began to play something different, something she'd never played for anyone before because it hadn't existed until now. Music that came from somewhere deep inside. Notes and chords that formed themselves without conscious thought. A melody that was all her own. It started low and dark, like the bottom of a well or the coldest night on the streets when she'd wondered if she'd see morning. The bass notes rumbled like distant thunder, heavy with sorrow. This was the sound of loss, of abandonment, of doors closing in your face, of people looking through you like you were invisible. But then slowly the melody began to change. The dark notes started climbing higher. A new theme emerged in the right hand, tentative and small but growing stronger. This was the sound of surviving, of getting up one more time even when everything in you wanted to stay down, of finding a reason to keep going even when there didn't seem to be one. The music built and built, the two hands working together now, creating something complex and beautiful. This was the sound of remembering who you were, of finding pieces of yourself you thought were lost forever. of discovering that the things that made you special couldn't be taken away, not by circumstance or hardship or time. Lily's whole body moved with the music now. She swayed slightly, her shoulders rising and falling, completely absorbed in what she was creating. The keys felt like home under her fingers. This was where she belonged. This was what she was meant to do. Her mother had known it. And somewhere deep inside, Lily had always known it too. The melody soared now, bright and clear and full of something that felt almost like joy. Not the innocent joy of a child who didn't know how cruel the world could be, but the harder, more precious joy of someone who'd seen the darkness and chosen light anyway, someone who'd lost everything and still found reasons to create beauty. This was her story told without words. This was 8 years of silence finding its voice. This was a promise kept even though it had taken far too long. The music reached its peak, notes cascading like water, like light, like everything good and pure and true in the world. Then gradually it began to settle. The melody softened. The chords became simpler. The piece was ending not with sadness but with peace, with acceptance, with quiet strength. Lily played the final notes gently, letting them fade into the afternoon air. Her hands lifted from the keys and came to rest in her lap. She sat very still for a moment, her eyes still closed, not quite ready to come back to reality. The silence that followed was absolute. No one moved. No one spoke. The entire plaza seemed to be holding its breath. Then, like a dam breaking, the applause began. It started with one person clapping, then two, then suddenly everyone was applauding. Not polite, reserved applause. Real applause. The kind that comes from deep in your chest, the kind you can't hold back. People were clapping and cheering, and some were crying openly. Lily opened her eyes slowly. She turned on the piano bench and saw the crowd for the first time. There must have been 100 people, maybe more. They filled the plaza, spilling out onto the sidewalks, and they were all looking at her. But not the way they'd looked at her before. Not with disgust or pity or judgment. They were looking at her with wonder. The man in the gray suit was wiping his eyes with the back of his hand, not even trying to hide his tears. He stepped forward, his voice shaking. "I'm sorry," he said. "I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I should never have..." He couldn't finish. Other people were coming forward too, all trying to speak at once. Someone pressed a bottle of water into her hands. Someone else tried to give her money, which she weakly pushed away. A woman started taking off her own jacket to offer it to Lily. Wait, please." A clear voice cut through the chaos. A tall woman in a black blazer and elegant pants was pushing through the crowd. She moved with purpose, with authority. When she reached the piano, she looked at Lily with an intensity that was almost overwhelming. "My name is Dr. Patricia Chen," the woman said. "I'm the director of the Metropolitan Conservatory of Music." She paused, her eyes never leaving Lily's face. "We need to talk. Right now." Lily stared at the woman in the black blazer, her mind struggling to process what was happening. Dr. Patricia Chen, Metropolitan Conservatory of Music. The words felt unreal, like they belonged to someone else's life, not hers. I don't understand," Lily managed to say, her voice hoarse from crying. Dr. Chen's expression softened, but her eyes remained intense, focused. "That performance, what you just did, that wasn't the playing of an amateur. That was years of training. Real training." She glanced around at the crowd still pressing close. "But we can't talk here. Is there somewhere we can go? Somewhere quieter?" Lily looked down at herself, at her stained jacket and worn-out shoes. "I don't really have anywhere to go," she said quietly. The admission made her cheeks burn with shame even after everything that had just happened. Dr. Chen didn't miss a beat. "Then we'll go to my office. It's just 2 blocks from here. Please give me an hour of your time. That's all I'm asking." Something in the woman's voice, a genuine urgency mixed with kindness, made Lily nod. She stood up from the piano bench, her legs shaky. The crowd parted to let them through, people still reaching out to touch her shoulder, to tell her how beautiful her playing was, to press business cards and money into her hands. As they walked through the plaza, Lily noticed something strange happening around them. People were pulling out their phones, but not to take more pictures. They were showing Dr. Chen their screens, saying things like, "It's already at 50,000 views," and "The video is going viral." "What video?" Lily asked, confused. Dr. Chen smiled slightly. "Someone live-streamed your performance. It's spreading across social media right now. By tomorrow morning, millions of people will have seen you play. The words made Lily's head spin. Millions of people. She'd spent 6 months trying to be invisible, and now millions of people were watching her. The thought was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. The conservatory building was beautiful in a way that made Lily feel even more out of place. Marble floors, high ceilings, walls covered with photographs of famous musicians. Students walked past carrying instrument cases, dressed in nice clothes, looking like they belonged to a world Lily had no part of. Dr. Chen's office was on the 3rd floor, filled with books and sheet music and a window that overlooked the city. She gestured for Lily to sit in a comfortable chair, then sat across from her, leaning forward with her elbows on her knees. "Tell me your story," Dr. Chen said simply. All of it, so Lily did. Sitting in that office, she told this stranger everything. About her mother, the piano teacher who'd worked herself to exhaustion to nurture her daughter's talent. About winning competitions as a child. About the dreams they'd shared. About the cancer that came too fast, that took too much. About the foster homes, the moving, the slow erosion of hope. About turning 18 and ending up on the streets with nothing but a backpack and memories she'd tried to bury. Dr. Chen listened without interrupting, her expression growing more pained with each part of the story. When Lily finally finished, there were tears in the older woman's eyes. 8 years, Dr. Chen said softly. You didn't play for 8 years and you still played like that. Do you understand how rare that is? How extraordinary? Lily shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. I just remembered what my mother taught me. It's more than that. Dr. Chen stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the city. I've been directing this conservatory for 15 years. I've heard thousands of students play. Talented students. Students who've had private tutors since they were 5, who've played at Carnegie Hall, who've studied with the best teachers in the world. She turned back to Lily. And what you did today, on a public piano in a plaza, was better than 90% of them. The word seemed impossible. You're just being nice. I'm never nice about music, Dr. Chen said, and there was something in her voice that made Lily believe her. I'm honest about music, and honestly, you have a gift that most people spend their whole lives searching for and never find. But more than that, you have something else. Something that can't be taught. She paused. You have a story in your playing. Pain and hope and survival. When you play, people don't just hear music. They feel something real. Lily didn't know what to say. She sat there overwhelmed while Dr. Chen pulled out her phone and made a call. Yes, it's me. I need you to prepare the paperwork for a full scholarship. Housing, meals, stipend, everything. Yes, I'm sure. I'll explain later. She hung up and looked at Lily. I'm offering you a full scholarship to the Metropolitan Conservatory, room and board included. You'll have a place to live, 3 meals a day, and the best music education in the country. It was too much, too fast. Lily felt like the room was spinning. Why? She whispered. Why would you do this for me? Dr. Chen came and knelt in front of Lily's chair, looking her straight in the eyes. Because I was you once. Not exactly, but close enough. I grew up in poverty. My parents worked in a laundry. We had nothing. But I could play the violin, and someone gave me a chance when I didn't think I deserved one. That chance changed my life. She took Lily's hand. Let me give you the same chance. Lily wanted to say yes. Every part of her wanted to say yes. But doubt crept in, the same doubt that had lived in her chest for 8 years. What if I'm not good enough? What if I can't keep up? What if everyone realizes I don't belong there? Then we'll work on it together, Dr. Chen said firmly. You'll have challenges. You've missed years of formal education. You'll need to catch up on music theory, history, composition. It won't be easy. But if you're willing to work hard, I promise you we'll get you there. The next few hours passed in a blur. Dr. Chen made more calls, filled out forms, explained policies and schedules. She arranged for Lily to have a dorm room, gave her money for immediate necessities, set up a meeting with a counselor who specialized in working with students who'd been through trauma. But as the sun began to set and Lily sat in that office, reality started to sink in. This was real. This was happening. She had a chance to start over, to reclaim the part of herself she'd lost, to honor her mother's memory by doing what she'd always been meant to do. When they finally left the office, Dr. Chen walked Lily to the dorm building. Classes start next week, she said. That gives you time to settle in, to get some rest. There's no pressure right now. Just breathe. Just let yourself believe this is possible. Lily stood outside the building looking up at it. Through the windows, she could see other students moving around, practicing, studying, living their normal lives. Soon that would be her too. She'd have a room, a bed, a future, Dr. Chen, Lily said, turning back. Thank you. I don't know how to... there aren't words, the older woman smiled. You don't need to thank me. Just promise me you'll keep playing. That's all the thanks I need. That night, Lily lay in her new bed in her new room, staring at the ceiling. It was the first time in 6 months she'd slept indoors in a real bed. The sheets were clean. The room was warm. She was safe, but she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying the day, the performance, the crowd's reaction, the scholarship offer. It felt like a dream, like she'd wake up tomorrow back on the street corner with her cardboard sign. She got up and looked out the window. The city lights sparkled below. Somewhere out there, her video was still spreading, being watched by people she'd never meet, touching lives she'd never know about. The girl in that video looked like her, but also didn't. That girl was confident, talented, powerful. Was that really her? Her phone, which Dr. Chen had helped her get that afternoon, buzzed constantly with notifications. Friend requests, messages from strangers, interview requests from news outlets. The attention was overwhelming, but among all the messages, one stood out. It was from the man in the gray suit, the one who'd tried to stop her from playing. I was wrong about you, he'd written. I judged you without knowing anything about who you were. I'm sorry. What you did today changed me. Thank you for not giving up, even when people like me tried to make you feel small. Lily read the message 3 times, feeling something loosen in her chest. Maybe people could change. Maybe first impressions weren't everything. Maybe there was hope for a world where someone like her could be seen for who she really was, not just what she looked like. She looked at the photo on her phone's home screen. Her mother, young and smiling, her arm around 9-year-old Lily at that competition she'd won. The last happy picture they'd taken together. I'm doing it, Mom, Lily whispered to the image. I'm keeping my promise, finally. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. She knew that. The scholarship was just the beginning. She'd have to work harder than she'd ever worked. She'd have to face her fears, her doubts, her trauma. She'd have to learn to let people in again, to trust again, to hope again. But tonight, for the first time in 8 years, Lily let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. The first 2 weeks at the conservatory were the hardest days of Lily's life since her mother died. Not because the work was difficult, though it was. Not because the other students were unkind, though some whispered and stared. The hardest part was learning to believe she deserved to be there. She'd wake up every morning in her dorm room and spend the first few minutes convincing herself it was real. The bed, the desk, the closet with actual clothes that Dr. Chen had helped her buy, the window that overlooked the practice rooms where she could hear other students playing scales and pieces at all hours. Real, all of it real, but real didn't always mean easy. The media attention had exploded overnight. News channels wanted interviews. Talk shows sent requests. Her video had been viewed over 20 million times. Strangers recognized her on the street, some kind, some curious, some treating her like a celebrity when she still felt like the invisible girl from the corner. The conservatory had assigned her a counselor, a gentlewoman named Dr. Rachel Torres, who specialized in trauma. You've been through more in your 17 years than most people experience in a lifetime, Dr. Torres told her during their first session. Healing isn't going to happen overnight, and that's okay. Lily met with her twice a week, slowly learning to talk about the pain she'd buried for so long, about her mother, about the foster homes, about the nights on the street when she'd been so cold and scared she thought she might not make it. The sessions left her exhausted, but also lighter somehow, like she was slowly setting down a weight she'd been carrying too long. The academic work was challenging in different ways. She'd missed so much school while bouncing between foster homes and living on the streets. Music theory made sense to her. Like her fingers had always known what her brain was now learning to name. But music history, composition, the academic side of things that required hours of studying she wasn't used to. She spent late nights in the library, catching up on everything she'd missed. Some of the other students offered to help. A quiet girl named Keiko who played cello would sit with her, patiently explaining concepts Lily struggled with. A guy named David who was studying composition would share his notes, never making her feel stupid for asking questions. But not everyone was welcoming. Some students came from wealthy families, from generations of musicians, from lives where everything had been handed to them. They looked at Lily and saw someone who'd cut in line, who'd gotten her place through a viral video instead of years of traditional training. "Must be nice," she overheard one girl say in the cafeteria. "The rest of us had to actually earn our spots." The words stung more than Lily wanted to admit. She almost ran back to her room, almost let the doubt consume her again. But then she remembered the plaza, the piano, the feeling of her fingers on the keys after 8 years of silence. She'd earned her place. Maybe not in the way they had, but she'd earned it through survival, through loss, through refusing to let her gift die even when everything else had. 3 weeks after starting at the conservatory, Lily had her first panic attack. She was in the practice room, working on a Rachmaninoff piece for her piano class when suddenly she couldn't breathe. The walls felt like they were closing in. Her heart raced. Her hands shook so badly she had to pull them away from the keys. She called Dr. Torres, who talked her through it on the phone. "This is normal," the counselor said in her calm voice. "You're safe now, and sometimes when we finally feel safe, all the fear we've been holding back comes flooding out. It's your body processing trauma. It's actually a sign of healing even though it doesn't feel like it." The panic attacks came and went over the next month, sometimes in class, sometimes at night, sometimes for no reason she could identify, but each time they got a little easier to manage. And each time there were people there to help. Dr. Torres, Dr. Chen, Keiko, and David. Even some of her professors, who'd been briefed on her situation and showed patience when she struggled. Dr. Chen checked on her almost daily.
"How are you really doing?"
she'd ask, and she always seemed to know when Lily was lying and saying she was fine. "I keep thinking I'm going to wake up and this will all be gone," Lily admitted one day in Dr. Chen's office. "Like I don't deserve any of this. Why wouldn't you deserve it?" Dr. Chen asked. Lily shrugged, staring at her hands. "Because I'm nobody. Because I lived on the street. Because there are probably hundreds of kids out there more talented than me who'll never get this chance." Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. "You're right," she finally said. "There probably are other talented kids who won't get this opportunity. And that's a tragedy. But you getting this chance doesn't take anything away from them. And maybe, just maybe, your story will help open doors for others." The words stayed with Lily. Maybe her story could matter for more than just herself. 2 months into her time at the conservatory, Dr. Chen approached her with an idea. "We've been getting requests," she said. "People want to hear you play. Not just the viral video. They want a real performance." Lily's stomach dropped. "I don't know if I'm ready for that." "I think you are," Dr. Chen said gently. "But more importantly, I think we could make this mean something bigger. What if, instead of a regular concert, we did a benefit? We could raise money for music programs in homeless shelters, for instruments in foster homes, for kids who love music but don't have access to it." The idea terrified and excited Lily in equal measure, using her story, her music, to help other kids like her. Kids who thought no one saw them, who thought their gifts didn't matter, who'd given up hope. "Okay," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. "Let's do it." The next 6 weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. Lily practiced until her fingers ached. She worked with a performance coach on stage presence. She met with donors and sponsors who wanted to support the cause. The event grew bigger than anyone expected. The conservatory's main concert hall, which seated 800 people, sold out in 2 days. The night of the concert, Lily stood backstage in a simple black dress that Dr. Chen had helped her pick out. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding. Through the curtain, she could hear the audience taking their seats, the murmur of hundreds of voices. Dr. Chen appeared beside her. "Nervous?" "Terrified," Lily admitted. "Good, that means you care." Dr. Chen squeezed her shoulder. "Remember what I told you. You're not playing for them. You're playing for yourself, for your mother, for every kid out there who thinks their dreams are impossible." The lights dimmed. Someone announced her name. The curtain opened and Lily walked onto the stage. The spotlight was blinding at first. She couldn't see the audience, just a sea of darkness beyond the stage lights. She walked to the piano the same way she'd walked to that piano in the plaza 4 months ago. Scared, uncertain, but also knowing, deep in her bones, that this was where she belonged. She sat on the bench and looked out at the darkness. Then she did something unexpected. She spoke. My mother used to tell me that music is a gift we give to the world, she said, her voice amplified by the microphone. For a long time I forgot that. I forgot a lot of things. Who I was, what I loved, what I was capable of. She paused, her hands resting on the keys. But music doesn't forget us. Even when we try to forget it, it waits. And when we're ready, it welcomes us home. She began to play, not with fear, not with doubt, but with the full force of everything she'd learned, everything she'd survived, everything she'd become. She played her original composition, the one she'd created in the plaza, but now it was longer, fuller, more complete. She'd added new sections over the past months. The ending had changed too. It no longer just ended with peace. It ended with triumph. The audience disappeared. The stage disappeared. There was only Lily and the piano and the music that flowed through her, like it had always been there, just waiting for her to be strong enough to let it out. When she played the final note and lifted her hands from the keys, the silence lasted for what felt like forever. Then the applause came, wave after wave of it, building and building until the entire concert hall was on its feet. But Lily wasn't looking at the audience anymore. She was looking at the front row, at the empty seat she'd reserved. The seat with a single red rose placed on it. For her mother. For the woman who'd given her this gift and who'd never stopped believing in what her daughter could become. Lily stood and took her bow, tears streaming down her face. But they weren't tears of sadness anymore. They were tears of gratitude for the music that had saved her, for the people who'd given her a second chance, for the journey that had brought her here. After the concert, dozens of people approached her. Donors handed her checks for the music program. Foster kids from the shelter she'd started volunteering at hugged her and told her she'd inspired them. Strangers cried and thanked her for reminding them that beautiful things could come from pain. But the moment that mattered most came later that night, back in her dorm room. Lily sat on her bed and pulled out her phone. She found the video from the plaza, the one that had started everything. She watched herself, that scared girl who'd almost walked away, who'd almost let the jeers and judgment win. Then she opened her notes app and began to write. She wrote about starting a foundation, about putting pianos in every homeless shelter in the city, about creating scholarships for foster kids who loved music but had no way to pursue it, about making sure that no talented child ever had to lock away their gift the way she had. It was ambitious, maybe too ambitious for a 17-year-old girl who'd been homeless 4 months ago. But Lily had learned something important over these past months. The world would always tell you what you couldn't do, who you couldn't be, where you didn't belong. But sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was prove the world wrong. She looked at the photo of her mother on her desk. "I kept my promise, Mom," she whispered. "And I'm just getting started." Outside her window, the city lights sparkled like music waiting to be played. And for the first time since she was 9 years old, Lily felt ready for whatever came next.